Nick Wright is one of the people who has been he's been really vocal about holding other people in the media accountable for things they do and things they say. So I like his take on it. So we'll cover that. And it's funny because some of the things that he said is actually very similar to what I said in last week's episode. Said he thought he was, speaking to a father. So just kind of I don't know, just a strange angle that it seems like he took there. So let's get to what Nick Wright had to say, which is here. Let me get this adjusted. I got a bunch of YouTube.
Stephen A. Smith has been going around talking about his confrontation with LeBron James. Talked about it on his show. Went and talked about it with Gilbert Arenas, and he said, "I thought it was weak. I thought it was some BS."
Yeah,
what's
about
your
LeBron coming up to him, and then also he went on Sean Hannity's show last night.
Yes,
and this got brought up, and despite all the awful things Hannity has said about LeBron over the years, so I have a lot of takes on this, and I was going to leave this be. But the Gilbert Arenas show appearance was, to me, it has to be responded to. And there's so many different tentacles to this. So I will first I want to make this point. We in the media have to be willing to occasionally take an L. Everyone does, but particularly us. We in the media have to be willing to at times be like, that was a miss. I was wrong. I didn't handle that perfectly. And we in the media also have to recognize and acknowledge that no matter how big or prominent or wealthy or successful,
his cadence is kind of slow. We're going to speed this up. We're going to go 1.5.
We will never be, from a fame or credibility to the audience standpoint, on par with the biggest athletes that we cover. It'll never. Howard Cosell was not equal to Muhammad Ali. He was telling Ali's story. The audience was there for Ali. Bob Costas was not equal to Michael Jordan. He's telling.
Just going to jump in here. I use quite a few YouTube videos, so fair use on me using this video. I think this is a really good point. I think sometimes now that the media, they get the views. Shout out to Jason for the coins. I appreciate it. The media, they get the views. They're signing the big contracts. So they think that they are the main show. But what they're forgetting is that the main show that people pay to see is the actual players, and that they're reporting or telling the story about the players. They aren't the players. So that's a really good point from Nick right there. Let's get back to it.
Michael Jordan's story. Go ahead, Demonte.
With that point, don't you think, like, because Stephen A. Smith's saying it's weak, LeBron James obviously has all the leverage on the court. Do you not think that it's a little, I don't know, I don't want to say it's weak, but because he obviously does have leverage. Like, nobody's going to be on Stephen A. Smith's side.
But you also, that's the thing. So that's the thing. You have to know in the media that at some point, the actual stars are the people we're talking about. Sometimes we can be good enough or successful enough or prominent enough or whatever, where we become kind of supporting actors, but it's their movie. People are here. They care so much about them that we become important people because we talk about them. And so there will never be a White House correspondent that is more important to the political discourse than the president. There will never be a Stephen A. is, and he has earned it. He is the most prominent sports media member, which does make him bigger than some athletes. But he will never be bigger than the biggest athletes. Like, here's a good kind of, back of the napkin math. Do you remember, Demonte, when I went after Patrick Beverley?
Yeah.
That is, I think, two people.
Kind of funny right here. Patrick Beverley about to catch a stray. And as y'all see, I got this on 1.5. It still seems like it's moving kind of slow. Let's get back to the video.
On kind of equal footing. But think about why that is. Yeah. You have me. I'm just saying we're about on equal footing. Me, someone who's probably near the bottom of the top 10 in my field. and someone like him who's near the top of the bottom 10 in his field. And that's where we meet.
Yeah.
So you've got to and there was another little jab at Patrick Beverley fit in there. So no, I don't think it's unfair for LeBron
to press him
to respond. We all and here is the other thing. You got to be prepared in the moment with how you're going to respond. If you get checked, and this idea, I told the story, confronted is too strong, but questioned by Jalen Hurts' mom night before the Super Bowl. She was totally within her rights. I've told the story before. I have nothing but good things to say about her. And there are not many bright sides for me that came out of that Super Bowl, but I respected her in that interaction so much that I was part of me, the little part of me that wasn't heartbroken about the result of the game, was happy for her because she was so adamant her son was going to win and that he was going to play great and all that happened. But in that moment, I had a choice to make. Do I fold my hand, or do I say, okay, we can actually talk about it? What I don't think is typically cool is to, in the moment, fold your hand, and then after the fact, talk and talk and talk and talk and talk about it.
I agree with everything you said right there. He's talking about how Jalen Hurts' mom talked to him prior to the Super Bowl, just talking about how confident she was and how her son was going to produce in the game, which he did. He ended up being Super Bowl MVP, so I think that's great. We also covered how Stephen A. Smith talked about how Kyrie Irving actually approached him, and also how Kyrie Irving's father also was texting Stephen A. Smith. And Stephen A. Smith even admitted it was in a way that he didn't appreciate. So this is not a new situation. I think the difference here is it's LeBron James. And one thing I'm noticing more as more media, instead of them just being on like a main network, now that they're, basically every media person is on YouTube now, just looking for things that other YouTubers will look for. So they're looking for opportunities to go viral. They're looking for clicks. They're looking for views. And I just think that that's part of the reason why Stephen A. Smith has spoke about the LeBron James situation so many different times, just because, it's who's bigger in sports right now than LeBron in the United States. So, he just wants to hold on to that. And I think he just kind of want to, use it for everything that he can get from it. So we're going to try to skip. He has an ad here. Let's get forward. Let's get back to him talking.
Go ahead and say, I have a hard time fully buying. On Gilbert's show, Stephen A. said, essentially, my producers made me address it. I didn't want to. My producers made me address it. Bro, that's not how that works. We all know that. It's not how that works on First Things First. I can't imagine that's how that works on First Take. I cannot imagine. And I do not think that anybody really believes there is anything on that show that Stephen A's I do not want to do this. And they're sorry, you have to. Come on, man. That's not a thing. Maybe the day after a finals game, if someone was I don't want to talk about the basketball game, they might be well, you have to. And if not, we're going to that's not a thing. And the other thing was this, because on Gilbert's show, Stephen A. said, oh, I thought in the moment this was about Bronny. It wasn't until I saw what LeBron's conversation, somewhat covered mouth not, with Richard Jefferson, that I knew this was actually about what I had said about him as a father. Man.
This is where I totally agree with Nick right here. This is also the same thing I said last week. I believe the thing that set LeBron off was he was calling out him as a father. One thing you got to kind of just be conscious of, people have different things that trigger them and things that, that they're sensitive to that might just set them off. Someone who was raised in a single parent home with just a mother, a lot of times you will hear fathers, or you'll hear the children who grow up from them home say, they actually want to be present. They want to be there as fathers. So that could be a sore spot or a trigger point when someone questions how they actually are parenting their kids. Especially when you believe that you're putting your children in the best position for them to be strong, productive citizens as adults, and a plus to the community versus a negative to the community. So that could be a sore spot. And that's something that, Stephen A. Smith just has to know. That's one of those ones where, even if LeBron has never said that, you can kind of just put two and two together just based on life experience. And you could come to the conclusion that this might be a sore spot for him. So just to play the naive role that you didn't know how, what, when, where, why, Nick is also going to speak on it. I brought it up last week about how when Stephen A. Smith said he wished that someone would have called him, this was after he first spoke about it and said that LeBron's people reached out to him and he mocked them live on his show for reaching out to him. So that was an opportunity for them to do something in private. He mocked them. He, kind of joked about it, laughed about it. So I think that's the reason why he's just not getting those sympathy points here. So let's get back to it.
I knew it the next day. I was on here the next day and I told everyone that's what it was about. It was obvious that's what it was about. Everyone who's in these circles knows that's what it was about. When LeBron's people called you and you made fun of him, it was months ago, it was about that. It was about I'm begging you as a father. So it's okay to say, I was caught off guard. Didn't really know. And then the other part of it, again, and I say this every time, and I'll say it again, and it's so funny that I texted with Stephen A. the morning before this all happened. So I think this happened a week ago today. I actually texted with Stephen A. that morning, so before it all happened, obviously. I have, and I'm still using current present tense, I hope, a good relationship with him. But I have to be fair here because I'm not hesitant ever on this platform or on the TV show really to criticize colleagues if I think they're dead wrong. I can't just have the guys that I really like or my friends or whatever be like, sacred cows here, especially when this is the story that continues to be the story. The implication with Gilbert and company that, listen, maybe I'd have handled that differently, but I work for Walt Disney. Come on, man.
Yeah, about the fighting or I was going to...
I mean, that's what it seemed like was being implied.
I thought the same
and
thing.
Come on, man. Listen, Stephen A. to his credit has gotten in great shape and did a real boxing thing and would be even at his he's in great shape for his age and is, despite being...
So that's Nick Wright. What's Right with Nick Wright? That's him and his son. They do a podcast. Comes on a couple times a week. Check it out if you want to see the full video of them talking about it. But I think we get the gist of it there. Basically, he's just kind of calling the task Stephen A. Smith and how he has responded after, just after the situation. He initially responded. He was dejected. We spoke about it. We talked about it on last week's episode, how he just didn't have that confidence that he normally has. Then he, calls out LeBron, says he believes it was weak. And then he also insinuated that if he didn't work for Disney, that, he potentially would have handled it a different way. I coined the phrase, it's blowing the air. He was blowing the air. I don't believe under any circumstances that Stephen A. Smith would ever attempt to get into a physical altercation with LeBron. I'm just not believing it. And the reason why I can say that confidence is because LeBron is physically intimidating to Stephen A. And we can see that just based on how he responded, just based on LeBron coming to him in a stern way in a public setting with thousands of people watching and potentially millions of people going to see it based on how we have camera phones and cameras all over the arenas now. He wasn't a person who didn't seem like he wasn't, he was, what the young people say, he didn't seem like he was standing on business. So I don't want to hear about it now that you would have, fought or you would have did this, you would have did that. I'm not trying to hear that. That's just, Stephen A. Smith blowing air after the fact. So we're going to put a pin in that. That's 2 episodes in a row. We talked about this. This was a higher topic on last week's show. Hopefully we're done with this subject. Stephen A. Smith, he's kind of doing similar to what I believe Todd McShay was doing last week. And, just kind of keeping the virality of it, keeping the clips going, and just, hoping that people still watch and tune in when he mentions the situation with LeBron. That's what I think it is. So we're just going to put a pin in that. And we're going to leave that there.